Hello and welcome to Couch Conversations on Black Love. I'm Kevin Fredericks.
I'm Melissa Fredericks.
And these are our friends. Please take a second to introduce yourselves and then tell us how long you've been together.
I'm Neasel
Clarence Connor.
and we've been married for 17 years in August.
I'm Lindsey Jackson. This is Aaron Jackson, and we've been married for 8 years in August.
Oh, y'all was got married in August?
August 22nd.
13.
August 15th.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
y'all got a Leo marriage.
Legal marriage.
Today we're gonna be talking about growing up in the church, marriage in the church, things like that. Melissa and I both are churchy kids. My first memories of all my life are church. We got married in the church like most people. And the church isn't bad. It's great, it's fantastic, I love it. I love the Lord, I love the culture. However, sometimes you have some unintended effects with your marriage as a result of growing up in the church and the way you see things. And that's what we're gonna talk about today. Let's start with, explain how the church impacted your marriage. How do you think it's shaped the way you see your relationship?
Well, I think number one is sex overall.
We're just gonna go there.
We just gonna go there.
Get right into P in the G.
Number one.
Hi, my name is Melissa. Sex. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Go there.
But we got married really young. We were 22, 23, and the whole time it was don't have sex till you're married, don't have sex till you're married. It's like the badge of honor as a young girl growing up in the church. I had the purity ring and everything. And so when we got married, now you can do it and you're expecting the switch to go off. Ain't no switch go off for me. And so I was very uncomfortable with what are we supposed to be doing now? And he had more experience than I did. And so there was a lot of...
Tell it.
There was a lot of insecurity about having to learn my body and kind of undo the narrative of sex being shameful, because it really carried a lot of weight growing up. And if you were doing it, you were a bad girl. If you weren't doing it, you were a good girl. And so I'm like, I'm a good girl. He's gonna like that. It's like, but I kind of wanted you to be a bad girl in the bedroom, but I had never learned that or learned what I wanted or needed for my body. And so sex definitely had a big impact on our relationship early on. And there's still a lot of unlearning I have to do about just being free in the bedroom now, so.
I just want to stop right here.
I didn't know who was talking.
A tambourine, I'm good for a good tambourine hand, because amen and amen again.
Yeah.
You have just quite literally said my story, that I think a lot of women, and to be honest, I've learned there are men as well, but I know that women are definitely impacted by the idea of being a good girl, by what purity culture meant and how it was something that was more enforced and narrated to women more so than it was to men.
Absolutely.
And so you grow up thinking this is what you need to be, and then you get your ring and you're supposed to be Adina Howard, and
Same.
you're looking like...
Same. It's
Until
It doesn't have to...
It's not.
You knocking at the doors of the church.
Right. How?
Right.
How? No,
Right.
I mean, same. And literally, in our church, they had something called True Love Waits.
Yeah.
And so the girls had to go through a process where it was really talking about purity, and everything was unpure. We're talking about BET was unpure.
Tip drill.
You see what
Outta
I'm
here.
saying? We couldn't watch it. We couldn't talk about it. It was like your eye gate, your ear gate. Everything was not right. And so you wait, and then at the end of it, you get this card. It's an ATM card. It's abstinence till marriage. So you get it if you pass the course. I did not pass.
You got kicked out.
I did not get out. But listen, I got kicked out because I didn't understand it. And so to be very honest, stayed pure, stayed a virgin until we got married. He's my only one, that's great. But, okay. But I didn't understand that. And I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me. And so again, like you're saying, unlearning this behavior. So we get married, and then what do? Let's have sex.
On the
Right,
flip
literally.
side, though, for a guy, me not having sex was so I grew up in South Central because everybody was just like, oh, you're gay. You are gay. No matter what.
Because you're not having sex.
I see you with Lindsey. Are you having sex with her? No? Okay, so you are now gay. If she was mad at me, we had like any like play school arguments, they'd be like, why don't you just have sex with her? That's why she's mad at you. And so now I have to walk around in the hood and they just know me as like, it wasn't like a badge of honor. It was almost like a badge of shame. Like, yo, you're not taking that down. Like, how dare you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So the cool thing is I had the church to almost have my own status. Because like at church is one thing, and the real world is another thing. So I could be, oh, this is a virgin at church, and everybody's like, oh man, Aaron's a virgin at church. He's with Lindsey. They the perfect couple.
Mind
so
you,
I had that.
We've been together forever.
Yeah.
So like history is, we've been married for 8 years, but like we've been
20?
together 20 years.
Yeah, we known each other since 3rd grade.
This is we met at church.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's history behind it. This is what we were bred to believe.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that, but it's just like, okay, how do you then feel for yourself, think for yourself, really uncover what's happening.
But I was ready. I was duly noted. I was like, let's do this. That was the awkward night. The wedding night was pretty awkward because it's not like I'm gonna go to my dad and be like, hey, so it's the big night. What you got any secret family moves? Like I was just like, so it was just like I think I put on like Usher. I was like,
It was so.
was it Tyrese? Usher or Tyrese?
It was sweet. It was sweet.
I think it was Sweet Lady.
It was Sweet.
I was like, Sweet Lady. I was like, this is gonna work. This is what the movie's telling me.
I love y'all. Like, we got one song.
Yeah.
Tyrese.
Think about it, because it's just a build-up. It's
Right.
You
Yeah.
cannot, but now you can.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because nothing in life that you grow up thinking is bad, you can instantly turn your mind and think it's good, and immediately it will work. Like that wouldn't work for anything. If you've never done, driven a car, you can say, oh, now you can drive, and you'll be able to drive. But in church, we thought that. We were taught that. And it's interesting how we both grew up in church. Melissa,
Wait, hold on. I want to say this though. I don't think that, like when I think back on, obviously, all of our childhoods, because we all sound like we grew up in the same place, okay? I don't think that the pastors, your mama, your daddy, whoever was this, authoritative figure over you when you were younger, meant it in that way, as much as it was the way it was received.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Meaning, I think their intention was, you don't want to be out here with, kids. You don't want to be out here with a possible STD. Like, they thought they were protecting you.
Right.
It's just that the way that they did it was so, like, fear-based. Mm-hmm. We're all here because we know better now. We recognize that wasn't really what they meant, and so really I need to undo all the learning, but still and yet, we've been married for 17 years, almost 18 years, and I still struggle with those same thoughts. Why? Because I was brainwashed.
In your
and I don't
formative
mean
years.
it like at a place of like malice or like they did it intentionally to harm me.
Right.
I know their intentions were pure, but it doesn't mean it didn't have unintended harmful effects that I still have to grapple with at 38 years old.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. I think it's kind of like, I was talking to a friend of mine who said, black kids usually get whooped in previous generation, then still a lot today. And he was saying that a lot of us grew up in poverty. And he's like, when you grow up in poverty, you don't have time to raise your kids. So you have to whoop them. You need fear to help you raise them because I'm gonna leave you at home. So all I really have to keep you sane is fear.
Right.
And the same thing can really apply to sex. I can't be around you all the time. So I gotta tell you, the first time you have sex, you
about to get pregnant.
Yeah.
You about to get pregnant. The first time.
And you're having
now
twins.
Right, okay, and that's it. And I'm not raising them.
Right.
Okay.
My mom
Look.
worked in the doctor's office, gynecologist's office. She would come home with pictures.
Oh, no.
Yes, she did.
Not show you
And they
pictures.
always had the active breakouts.
Oh, my gosh.
And it would be like, and this could be you. And so immediately you're just like, well, I don't want that.
Right. What do you do?
What do you do?
Right.
Okay, keep it closed.
So I got a question. Butt stuff. How do you get there when you're raised in the church?
For real, how has the evolution been? Like when you talk about, where we started from, how do you evolve into, being this sexual prowess because now you're married? How has that evolution been for you?
Yeah, I think it's just finding a way to introduce it, right?
Yeah.
Wait, you talking about butt stuff?
I wasn't talking about butt stuff. I was just throwing butt stuff out. I said butt stuff. I want to clarify.
We all here?
It's the furthest you can go.
What is
Any
it?
stuff.
Well, what you do is.
Wait, were you talking about butt stuff for real?
No, I was being funny.
He was talking about butt stuff.
He's about to break it down too.
So what you gotta do? You gotta get comfortable. No, I was really the outside of the jokes. I was really just
Jokes
saying,
aside, what is the butt stuff?
how do you get comfortable? How do you unlearn stuff that whatever butt stuff is for you? You ain't gotta talk to us about butt stuff specifically, unless you feel comfortable.
We're sharing. We're sharing.
I mean, there's a lot of, anyway. My wife is a therapist, and so she talks about neuroplasticity. When you've learned something and you've
You've made these connections in your brain, and so you have to actively work to unlearn,
undo
make new
those
pathways.
things, right? And so finding ways to introduce things, and it might be, and this is kind of taboo, like porn, right? So like, what does porn look like in a marriage? Can it be used in a marriage in order to introduce, right? So when we used to go on vacations, look at her eyes.
No, you set this up. You the one that jumped us all in. Don't try to pump the brakes now.
But like we go on vacation and like, we going through the channels, you start seeing some extra channels on these vacations you go on. I'm talking about Kevin. Anyways,
I've been in Mexico. It was like weather. Oh. That ain't
and then
the weather.
hey, do you like that? And I don't like that either. You like that? Okay, we okay with that there. But just to kind of like get some type of introduction to what are options out there, right? And so just identifying ways to introduce new techniques and even methodologies of sex. I'm okay with whatever, right? But just trying to get an introduction for what could another level of sexuality be inside of our marriage.
Right.
And then I'm not looking for a porn star because my wife, that's a paid deal, right? Like that's a fantasy. You have to get that out of, anybody who's dealing with pornography, that's a fantasy, right? But it's a way for us to at least have a conversation. You just watching, there's arousal as well, right? And so just that was one way for us to kind of introduce a little bit.
Right, and just to piggyback off of what you said, Melissa, like a lot of the techniques that we learned were rooted in fear, and it's kind of switching the mind into thinking about sex as being exploratory, right? And releasing the fear and shame from it, right? And just finding new ways to explore each other, explore our bodies inside of our marriage, and taking that kind of root function of fear out of it. So I think that has helped relearn, but it's still a process. Like, I'm still learning and trying to relearn things, for sure.
What about you guys?
Alcohol, sometimes.
Why do you just go there?
Because it loosens
Girl, we're
me up.
already there.
Yeah,
There's no line.
I get loose.
No, that's
Most
true.
like with us, like she's in theater, so her friends are wild. So they talk about stuff, and they just like whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop, and then she's like, "Hey, let's try this." And sometimes I go immediately no, and then sometimes
Immediately no.
and then other times it's like, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." And right now with kids, we have 2 boys, and they're both really young. One's 3 years old, one's about to turn 1. And it's just like, whenever we could get in, we could get it in. So we ain't got time for like, let's go explore. I think us taking that time out is our best time. Or we go like a spa day where places where we not responsible for other people.
Right now.
Yeah, because right now we just so responsible. It's like, ugh. But I could go to New Jersey. We live in New York now. So I could go to New Jersey, go to a sex shop and get like some toys, but I wouldn't do it in like Harlem where I'm from, just because like people know me around there. So I was like, all right, well, let's go over there. Let's figure this out. So I think like with her friends and like people just telling us stuff, and that's where I get my information. I get it from my closest friends. So most of our friends, we're the couple when it comes to like our friends. We were the church couple. We grew up together.
Right.
We were the one that people looked at. So now we're trying to look at the other couples like, what are they doing? I wonder, okay, how freaky is he or she? So we have these conversations with like different people. It's not really like, what was your wife's favorite position? Nothing crazy like that. But it was like, have you ever tried this? Or like rings or stuff like that.
The tools.
Rings, swings, any INGs.
We are there. Well, I think one thing that's interesting that you're talking about, where we were talking about like exploration, how do you reconcile this idea of exploration when it comes to toys, when it comes to your body?
Yeah.
Hear what I say, what I didn't say. And how you grew up.
I think I'm still learning, and even saying like, man, I'm 38 and I'm still learning, like I should have it, right? After being married for this long, but it's really a process of learning like, okay, God created my body. He created all these pieces. He knows what this does. He knows the function, so it must be okay. And so I have to learn that it's okay. The touch is okay. The exploration is okay, but man, it's taken a while. Like, it's still taking time, which is the frustrating part about it, because I think the way God designed sex to be within the marriage is supposed to be free, and to not feel that freedom can sometimes be like disheartening.
Yeah.
So still learning.
Yeah.
Still
One
learning.
of the, I agree with you 100%. One of the things that we talked about actually in our book, and we also had someone on our podcast when we were doing it, she talked about the bamboozlement of the purity movement, and I think that is one of them. The idea that everything you're teaching me now, it will all go away and I will magically become the sex goddess the moment that I say I do. And so sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, and I can imagine other people feeling like this, I am frustrated that I feel like y'all tricked me.
Right.
It shouldn't be this, not when I did it right.
When you did it
Right.
right.
Not when I
you
did it right.
When you did it right,
Right.
you did all the things. And it's the same, it doesn't even have to be like about turning sex from bad to good, but even like, okay, now I want to get pregnant. So it should be super easy because I didn't, and you told me the first time that I was gonna get pregnant. And so now we're trying to have kids, you know, when we were. And so it's that whole mind mentality, like you're saying, of switching all the no's that we did, because we were together forever, right? Every no, we stopped ourselves. We ran from temptation, flee from temptation, and now I'm saying yes. So like years in, even now, I say no, and he's like, do you really mean no? You know, like, is it a yes now? Is it, you know, I have to start saying yes?
Yeah.
It's flipping it. Like you're saying, it's flipping it.
It is.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is along the lines of shame that we were talking about earlier, I don't think shame was distributed evenly, because I remember I had sex before marriage.
Good.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I mean, regular guilt, but I wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh no. I was just like, dang man, your boy messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the punishments weren't equal either. You know, I remember one time a homegirl and our homeboy had sex, right? Got pregnant. She got sat down for the whole time. He played the drums her whole pregnancy. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, she wore the scarlet letter of the baby, but it was both of them having sex, came to our church, but she was the one who was like, now I don't want to say outcast because it wasn't that bad, but she got the stink eyes and she carried the shame. She carried the shame. And he was just like, another drummer. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, I don't want to say boys will be boys, but it was like expected of men, and it kind of, women are supposed to fight it off, as opposed to men are supposed, you know what I mean? It didn't feel equal. And I remember, I don't know, I just don't feel like purity culture affected me in the same way. I'm curious for you guys, because you say, were you a virgin until marriage?
Yep.
And you were?
No.
Okay, so me and you was like, did you feel the same purity culture that your wife felt?
Nah, cause I could fake it. You know what I mean? Like if I was really getting pressure, we did stuff. We did stuff. Like 40-year-old virgin, like sandbags or something.
I was literally thinking that. Bags of sand.
But it was, sex wasn't always the most important thing when it was at church, because I was with her, and I say this all the time, if I was with anybody else, I probably would have had sex before marriage. It was only her. She had one focus. I was like number 3 on her list. It was like, I am a professional dancer. I will be a professional dancer. I'm moving to New York. I will dance. And you are in my way of that. So if you want to tag along, you could tag along. So that's what it always was. So she already had her focus. So I already knew it was a no for her. Right. And my thing was, I saw how good she was at how purposeful she was about her dance. I wanted to support that by not getting her pregnant, by not like having another distraction. So with her, I was like, nah, she's hands off. And I just was with her all the time. But if it was another girl, I probably would be like, well, you're not worth it for me to like protect you, almost. Like I felt like I was protecting her purity instead of me protecting my own purity. So that was like how I kind of took it. And we just been together forever, so I just ended up not having sex. It was her thing. People knew about her, but then after you got kicked out, people were like, oh, I wonder what they doing.
I know. They thought, because it's
And you didn't even have sex to get kicked out.
Exactly.
No, she got kicked out because she wanted to dance, and she was like, this is messing up with my schedule.
No, but I also didn't understand all of the no's. Everything was, you cannot do this. And like you said, like, honestly, your body, your hormones, like, we're making out in the car, and, you know, we're doing a whole bunch, and that's a no. You know, you can't, because if you put in your tongue, it's an insertion.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's penetration.
Everything was such a hard, and again, fear-based. They meant right, they really did, but it was like, we couldn't do anything. And at the same time, you know, dance was my focus, but I was like, I'm trying to keep this man. This is a good, I knew at the time, I was like, he's a good man.
Like what Lindsey said, as soon as you say yes that one time, it's like, well,
I'm going to hell anyway now.
Yeah, I might as well just keep it going. So I think when it comes to women, they're like, oh, she said yes that one time. She's scarred for the rest of your life.
Right.
Yeah. Like a guy, I was always taught to be the yes. I'm pursuing you. I'm trying to get a yes. I'm the man. That's what I'm doing. Who can find a virtuous woman? I gotta find this woman.
Right.
Like I gotta pursue her. So I was taught to get a yes. And the fact that I got a yes, to answer your question about the guy, the drummer, he got the yes. So he did what he was supposed to do. He got a yes.
Yeah.
And the girl's always supposed to do the no. Like, she, no, stay away from me. And so she did the opposite of what she was supposed to do. Her training was no. And she did the opposite. She said yes. And I did what I was supposed to do. I got a yes. That's what you want me to do. You want me to pursue these women. So that's why I feel like they're like, oh, she went against everything that we tried to raise her or teach her about. So with us, I was trying to protect her no, and I didn't need a yes because I knew the yes would come, especially with her. She was just like so laser focused. I was just like,
I was ready. I mean, like I was ready when it was ready. You know, when it was time in my head.
For me, like the purity culture wasn't necessarily a thing. I'm half Korean, half black. My earlier years with church was in a Korean church. I didn't know what they were saying. I didn't actually find a black church until
I like how he said it.
I went to college in Austin, and I found a church looking for a haircut. Don't need haircuts now, but. And I was just a weird kid. But when I went to college, I grew into myself, right? So I was a virgin going in. And yes.
Correct.
So I didn't have purity
played the
culture,
tape
but
forward.
I was weird enough to where I didn't have any prospects. Until college, until high school year, we dated. She was my first girlfriend. She lied about me being her first boyfriend. That's not what we talk about here. And so for me, I didn't lose my virginity until I joined the church.
Yeah.
But like I was still, leading the young adult ministry, the Wednesday Bible study. Like I'm in the choir, I'm the mime team leader. Like I'm doing all the things as far as a leader goes, right? But there's this other side that nobody want to talk about, right? Because you're accomplishing so much. Yeah, you can just keep doing what you want to do.
Yeah. I think one thing that's so interesting is this idea of how the purity culture provides different narratives for men and women. I think it speaks to what you were just talking about. Men are often looking for a yes, and women are often provided with the responsibility of providing the rails and saying no. So I know you guys have boys, you said, right?
Yeah.
2 boys. What do you guys have?
We have a 4-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old son.
And then Kevin and I have 2 boys as well. So I guess the question is, what are you guys doing differently? What narrative are you giving your boys? What narrative are you giving your daughter that's different so they don't carry the same sort of trauma, that's the word I'm gonna use, trauma, into their adulthood, into their marriage, into their relationships? So I'll start with you guys.
Well, we have 2 boys, and I'm gonna be honest, like we're saying, the mindset of boys versus girls, that's how I was raised. I'm very close with my brother. We're about 1 year and 2 months apart. And I can recall very specifically my dad sitting me down. He was like, you can't do the things your brother does. Period. And he told me that for everything. And so I'm still wrestling with that idea, like, cause I'm like, oh, well, great, we have boys. I don't actually, like, I haven't even thought about it, Melissa, to be honest, cause it's like, they're 3 and 11 months. So, we got the babies. But I mean, if we're talking about it right now, what you think? How are we raising these boys?
Hilarious. You know what? Come to think of it, I don't know what we gonna tell these boys. Now, what is we gonna do?
I would know what to say to my daughter, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because the way we kind of operate was like, all right, the boys, once they get that age, you just like, because you even, which is interesting, because you're even weird about like penis stuff now. Like, when he did something the other day. He was like, oh, my tinkle was moving. And you were like, what?
Well, it was and he had just given me a kiss, and he loves mommy, and it's like a whole, he's learning, and it's not, the first time but it's the first time that he acknowledged something was happening to him. And so I am calm, and
you was not
what? This is your mother?
Where's your daddy? This is why I haven't
I had to step in. I was like,
to your dad. Go on and talk to him about it.
Yeah, so it's funny because I know that the responsibility for the 2 boys are like as soon as they hit a certain age. And I think I'm going to raise them in the church the same way that we were raised in the church, because just having that foundation in our marriage, just to fall back on and like knowing, boom, I know where she comes from, I know where her core values are. Yeah. That's super important for me to just know, even when we going at it, I still can see your perspective at one point, because I'd be like, all right, well, this is where she like kind of grew up. This is the base. I know where you come from. Yeah. So I'm going to raise them in the church, but I will be more particular of not more so the fear, but the why. Why are you not having sex? Well, there is a connection. And if you get with the wrong person, like getting with the wrong person is the worst. I see it all the time. And so like marriage to me is like winning the lottery. If I know what I'm doing, I'm set. But if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll be broke and I'll be on one of those documentaries about how I spent my whole $1 billion and now I'm in shambles. So like picking the right girl, and I know that emotions are super high. When we was making out, we was Finding Nemo? We was like making out in the movie theater.
Finding Nemo?
We actually stopped because it was a good movie.
Anything is on. We gonna kiss.
The mom died in the beginning, so we stopped making out.
We were like, what happened? The whole theater got silent, and we were like, what? But I was on his lap, laughing at him, like, I'm saying, because that was our only time we met at church, and so we couldn't do it there, so we was like, but now.
Y'all was going to Disney when we was a kid.
Oh yeah, we was going to all. But Finding, I would tell my son's name Action. One's a Action Jackson, one's a Shine Jackson.
Yes.
And so I would tell them just like, hey, this is a big deal. It is important because once that connection is had, you're not losing that connection. And the way that your mom loves, I mean, if we had sex, she would have went crazy when we was younger. Like she would have been obsessive. So like you don't want that at a younger age. You trying to figure out your life. I didn't really figure out my life until like after I'm 34 now. I'm still figuring out things that way back in the day that I was like, oh, it's just like the whole church mentality. I was given instructions and I followed these instructions clearly, and then real life started happening. Like our first son was a stillbirth. And I was so mad at God because I was like, dog, I did this right. I did it the right way, and you take my firstborn son? Like, how dare you? Like, who do you think you are for us to like go through that and to have the whole, like everybody's been watching us the whole time. So they know that this is the first baby. This is because they never had sex, and this is they baby. And then to take him at birth, I was like, dog, are you crazy right now? And I was talking to God sideways, and that was we were 30 years old, right? Mm-hmm. We were 30 years old, and I had such a big thing about like purity and all the ways that I was supposed to live. and I wasn't doing my critical thinking. So I think I would focus on critical thinking. Find the why. Why are we not having sex before marriage? My why was because I knew she was gonna be a star. Now she on Broadway and she doing her thing, but like.
It's all because you didn't get her pregnant.
Exactly. So yeah, I can be like, yo, man, if you want a good one, just not get her pregnant. Let her focus on her and you focus on you, and then y'all both build up together, because like, girls are always gonna be there. Girls are always gonna be there, like, forevermore. There's always gonna be a woman who's gonna want you. You're intelligent, you're a Jackson, you're gonna be fine.
That's what you tell them.
You're gonna be fine. So when I was younger, I really thought that if I didn't have sex then, it wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older, I know it's bound to happen. Unless I join the clergy, or like my son joins the clergy and he's just like not gonna do it. But I wouldn't recommend that, because I was like, dog, you're gonna need a release. So like I would just try to focus on the whys and have them think critically, instead of just like, don't do it because I said so.
Yeah.
Because that is gonna be harmful in the end.
Yeah, that's good. What about you guys?
I think one of the things, and I'll let you answer too, is that just trying to remove shame from our bodies, period,
Yes.
right? Like, let's talk about our bodies. Let's talk about what things are called on our bodies. Like, that's not a bad conversation for you to know the proper terminology for all of your body parts. And so I think releasing just the shame that comes with what your body is, and it's okay, and you might feel things. I think it's something that we try to be intentional about, but I will say that part of me gets it. Part of me gets the fear as a parent, especially with a daughter now. It's like, I get it, like I understand it in real ways. And so I also have to do like my own work to be like, Neasel, that's your stuff. That ain't Naima's stuff, that's your stuff. So deal with your stuff so that she can have different outcomes for when she is older. So that would be one of the ways. What would you say?
I think for our son, just the respect side of it all, respecting your daughter, respecting your mother. You know how I treat her. I expect you to treat any woman in your life that same way. Go broke for them, right? Not like my dad. My dad gave me my first month's rent, a bag of condoms, and said, be good. And so then he took the whole family. He was in the Army. He took the whole family and moved to Korea. So I had a 1 month's rent and a bag of condoms. And that was it. I was grown at 17.
Wow.
At 17?
I think that's a good age to be grown, though. That's a real good age to be grown. I'm tired of coddling all these young people. But anyway, 17, there it is. That's a good age to be grown.
I think for us, we realized, because our boys are 15 and 13. Yeah.
Teenagers, you ready?
Yeah. We realized it's not a conversation, it's many conversations.
Right.
And it's the age appropriate ones. Like you were saying, when you're younger, this is your body, this is your private area, this shouldn't be touched by anyone, right? Now, more of our conversations were about consent, what that looks like. And obviously we don't want our kids to have sex or to get pregnant in high school and things like that. But for me, it was about realistic parenting, right? I feel like a better conversation than don't have sex, don't get married. I mean, don't have sex, don't get pregnant is, here's how a girl gets pregnant. Here's what happens. Here's real life examples in our lives of, like my brother had sex early. He got a girl pregnant, and here's how his life changed, right? Here's how her life changed, right? Here's how it's more difficult. If you're going to have sex, here's how you protect yourself. Here's what consent looks like. I remember a YouTuber, I use Scandal to parent all the time, and not in a negative way. Like, I literally be learning. This one YouTuber, the consent was, it was like he created an environment where women didn't feel safe to say no. So I was like, when you're with a person that you just meet, the chance of you having a night where consent isn't clear is much higher if you don't know that person very well.
Right.
If you're gonna have sex, you're going to have sex, and you have a better chance of earning consent with somebody you've been in a consistent relationship, committed relationship, alcohol or drugs are not involved, because if alcohol and drugs are involved, then they might give consent and might feel differently later or not be able to give consent because they're under the influence. So it's like, our 12 and 13-year-olds were like, Whew, this is a lot.
Okay.
This is
Right?
a lot.
You started at 12.
We started way earlier.
We started.
The consent conversations were.
We had
were
the
older.
consent conversation when the whole Me Too movement was happening a few years ago. So they were probably, Isaiah was probably more pre-teeny.
Probably 12 and
Joe,
10, I feel
yeah,
like.
that's what I was gonna say. But we definitely, part of the reason why is because my oldest son's best friend is a little girl. And so he wanted to have a sleepover, and obviously he wanted his best friend. They've known each other since they were in second grade. So anyway, she wanted to spend the night, and I had to break his little heart. But I had to tell him, don't ever put any of your woman friends in a situation where she is surrounded by a group of men. That's not a safe environment as a woman. I know you're 10 and I ain't what you're thinking about.
Right.
But when you're older, you don't want to put a woman in that situation for her to say, you did X, Y, and Z. It's just not a situation you want to put yourself in. That's not a situation you want to put your friend in. So having conversations about consent, normalizing puberty, normalizing, things that happen in your body and saying that that's totally okay. Those are the first seeds to be planted about shame. Oh, this happened and you freaked out? That's bad. Got it. And your kids are always going to be looking at you on how they are to interpret what's happening.
Yeah.
So if you respond a certain way, they're taking in that information about their body. And so it's important for us to check our trauma. It's important for us to recognize what we're carrying because we're gonna pass that on.
Right.
And one thing that's often true is more things are caught than taught. So you don't have to say anything. They're just catching up on how you're acting. And then it's like, well, where did you learn that from? I never told you that. No, but you responded in a way that taught me. So with all of that said, listen, child, we done had a real great conversation.
What stuff, guys?
We talked about
Get
sex,
into it.
shame, church, trauma.
Yeah.
We talked about all the things. I want to say thank you guys so much for coming to our home.
Thank you for having us.
You know, I decorated myself. There's some cookies back there. It's not really. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. See y'all next episode.